Hey everybody, welcome to a StarCraft 2 commentary brought to you by Chosen, and this is going to be an awesome game. It's Rigid playing the blue Zerg over here in about the 12 o'clock position, and he's going up against QXC playing the red Terran over here in about the 2 or 3 o'clock position. Let me introduce the players. I just always go in alphabetical order. Rigid is actually a Zerg player ranked 53rd in the North American server, and he's 155th in the world, so very high ranked. But QXC, not to be outdone, is ranked 6th in North America and 7th in the entire world right now as far as points, as far as ladder points are concerned. So both these guys in basically the top 50 of North America out of 600,000 players. So it's a Zerg vs Terran that's pretty much as good as it gets, and the map is going to be not Lost Temple. I'm so used to saying Lost Temple. The map is going to be Scrap Station, and Scrap Station is an interesting map because it's basically an island map for the early game. I mean, you see QXC scouting now. You have your proximity of your bases are actually fairly close by air, but to scout your opponent takes like a minute to get there. You got to go all the way down and around here to this Zelnaga Tower, and then all the way down and back around up to your opponent's base. So it's a fairly easy map for Zerg to expand on and take their natural expansion. And we see QXC going to be getting that gas in that pool right at about 14, so he's still getting that pool a little bit early. I think Zerg can afford to probably go like 17 pool or maybe even fast expand on this map before they get their pool, because it's extremely hard for somebody to be aggressive versus your natural expansion since it's so far away. But later on in the game, there's actually these barriers of destructible rocks. There's a barrier for each player, like at the base of each player's entry point. So there's destructible rocks right here and destructible rocks right here. Once both those are destroyed, you actually have a very short proximity to be able to get to your opponent's natural expansion and their home base. So a pretty interesting map that's going to make for a good Zerg vs Terran. And it looks like Rigid going to be going for Roach. He's going one gas Roach and going to do away with that SCV with the Lings. And it looks like QXC is just going one Rax into factory, not getting an attachment on that barracks yet. He's just going to be going straight for the factory, and he is also on one gas. So neither player really going gas heavy, neither one taking their second gas yet, and that Roach Warren is going to be done. So I wonder if Rigid is going to use this to try and be aggressive on the front door, which I don't expect since he's so far away, and by the time he gets there I would expect a player of QXC's caliber to be able to cope with it pretty easily. And yeah, he's throwing down that natural expansion, so he's probably just getting the Roaches to be able to protect his natural and get some units out so that he can take that natural expansion. And QXC lifting off that barracks to put an attachment on it, and he's actually getting the reactor. He's going to be switching his factory over to the reactor and starting a couple Hellions. So he's going to be going for a Hellion harass on Rigid's natural expansion. But Rigid with this Zergling is going to see, he sees that factory with the reactor, so he knows there's Hellions coming. That's what that would mean, and he's QXC just pumping Marines, and he's actually getting a bunker here. He just wants to make sure that he's safe against any sort of fast attack by Rigid. And now he's going to move out with those two Hellions, and I don't think he's going to be able to do a whole lot with those Hellions, but it is good to harass, and they're fast units, so it's good to scout with them, and you can get a lot of information with them. And now QXC is running off of the dual gas, and as is Rigid. So these Hellions moving in here. Going to see that that natural expansion is not even done yet, so there's no drones. And Rigid using these Roaches just to keep those Hellions out of his base. And very important to use your Overlords once you have a lair to, lay down this creep, because Zerg units move so much faster, especially the Queens are so much more mobile on the creep. It's just, instead of leaving your Overlords just sit around in your base, which I see a lot of like gold level players doing, you have to use these Overlords, especially when you have a lair. Use them to build creep all around the map and spread that Zerg infestation. That's what Zerg is all about. And it looks like the starport for QXC is going to be pumping out Medevac for now. And he hasn't switched his attachments up. He's still got nothing on the barracks. He is going for another factory though, and he's going to be going for a Hellion drop, which is a good option on this map that I feel. Usually you can do at least a little bit of damage with, but Rigid is obviously going to see this coming with the Overlord. He's going to get those roaches into position, and he's going to be able to take down these Hellions as soon as they come out. So great play by Rigid, using these Overlords and Overseers for vision, and just doing a good job so far with the drone and unit composition. Getting units at the right time, getting drones at the right time, and that's what makes Zerg, that's the difficulty of Zerg, because Zerg is the only race that you produce drones and units out of the same production, out of the same building. So you got to know when to get drones and when to get units, and it's a hard concept for a lot of players to grasp, and that's why I think people have a tougher time learning Zerg usually. But now QXC going to be getting some Banshees out, and he's actually pumping a Thor out of this factory, so he's probably going to use a medevac and try to drop that Thor over here and do some damage. But Rigid's in a pretty good spot. If I pull up the resources tab, QXC's actually 2 supply ahead, 52 to 50. If I pull up the income tab, it looks like QXC is ahead by 1 harvester, and his income is pretty significantly better because of that mule. Excuse me, but Rigid does have that natural expansion, so it's pretty much about even economically. And another Hellion drop coming in for QXC, but that's not going to do any damage. Rigid doing a great job versus these drops, playing very well versus them so far, and QXC not able to do really any harassment. He went for the Hellions early, didn't really accomplish anything with them, couldn't even really scout the main base because roaches were up here at the front blocking it. And yeah, this is, I would have to say that Rigid does have a slight advantage, even though QXC does have that Thor out, and he does have the lead in supply, and he's getting that the natural expansion command center down. That should be done in about a minute or so. And Terran are very strong off 2 bases, by far the strongest race with 2 bases. So once Terran get that natural expansion up and running, they are tough to deal with. QXC going to be moving in now with that Thor and a Banshee, so he's got a medevac, a Thor, and a Banshee coming into Rigid's base, but I don't think this is going to do a whole lot. When roaches are close to units, they can fry them fast. Yeah, this is going to have to be picked up and moved. The second Banshee coming in, but that's not really going to matter. And there goes the natural expansion command center for QXC. And he's transferring a bunch of his SCVs now. And he's going back to pumping the medevac from his starport and continuing to pump Thors. So he's going to be at 2 Thors and pumping Hellions out of his factory, whereas Rigid is going for the Hydroist Den and the Infestation Pit. And let's see, I'm trying to get a grasp here of exactly what he's going to go. So he's basically going to be going in Infestor, Roach, Hydra, which is a good mix. And let me get back to this drop really quick from QXC. He's got those 2 Banshees harassing drones. That's good. That's what you need to do with those, because Rigid doesn't really have any anti-air right now. So he needs to use those Banshees to snipe drones. And Infestor using the Neuro Parasite, which is able to give the Infestor control of the unit, and disposing of that little drop harassment pretty easily. QXC going to be moving in with a couple more Thors, again trying to just harass this right side of the base of Rigid's, but not having really any success so far. And Rigid does have that spine crawler, so that helps things tremendously. But he doesn't have any anti-air, so QXC is able to kind of roam around the base freely, that Queen being the only anti-air to speak of. And it looks like QXC going to be moving in with some Hellions too. He's going to try to sneak in behind and kill off a bunch of drones, but those 2 spine crawlers are going to be more than enough. And he's got this ramp protected, so Rigid doing an extremely good job of watching all of his fronts and doing a great job versus harassment so far. QXC does have that natural expansion up and fairly saturated, and he's getting another command center down. He might be overextending himself just a tad. I don't know if he's going to have the map control to take a 3rd base right now. Rigid has a very strong unit count, and he's able to neuroparasite that Thor and take it down. You know, Zerg players, if you don't use Infestors, you have to use them, especially Zerg vs Terran. Infestors are such an important part of your army, Zerg vs Terran, and I see a lot of gold and even platinum level players not using Infestors with Zerg. and myself included, when I was playing Zerg, I wasn't using infestors like I should have been, and they are just extremely important, Zerg versus Terran. And yeah, this is the map control I was talking about. QXC is not going to have it. These units moving up for Rigid, and he's going to need to wait for these infestors. It looks like these infestors, only 2 of them have 100 energy, so if you see the Neuroparasite takes 100 energy, I would expect him to use 2 of those for the Neuroparasite, take control of those Thors of the Banshees. And these roaches need to get close in proximity, and that's what you see them doing. And yeah, there's the Neuroparasite taking down that Banshee right there. And you see it turn blue, that means it's under the Zerg control, and so is that Thor. He had that Neuroparasited, and this is going to be GG, it looks like. He doesn't even bother with the natural expansion, he just busts right in through the front. So a nice win, Rigid beating QXC, Zerg versus Terran on an interesting map, and QXC going for a Hellion Harass on that main base, and he's able to do a significant amount of damage, but it's a little too late. And there's the GG from QXC, so Rigid taking it down, and that was a ladder game, not a custom game, so it did count for both players' ratings. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.